Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Offside Chat Football Legends podcast. This is the very first episode of the rebrand of the podcast. It used to be just episode 1, episode 2 when we first started, didn't it, Rob?
It did, yeah.
But basically, we've just put a name on it. So, Football Legends podcast, and the first one we have up today is Ronaldinho, a hero of anyone that watched football during the early noughties, mid-noughties. Probably the most skillful player that I've ever seen on the pitch. Him and Messi, definitely. But joining us for this episode is Marcus, a very good friend of mine, and Robbie's joining us all the way from sunny Bolton. How's it going, Marcus?
How you doing, boys? Yeah, looking forward to it. Getting to deep conversation over. Again, I'll just echo what you said. The best player one of the best players, if not the best player I've seen on a pitch, and he brought the love of the game properly back to Barcelona, and his skill level was just out of this world, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's
broke your heart as well, didn't he, in 2002 as well, right?
Oh, don't remind me, boys. I've only just got over the most recent heartbreak.
Wasn't going to bring it up, but hard luck. It didn't come home.
Yeah, it took you all about a minute and 30 seconds to get that in there.
Yeah, we're never going to
let that one go.
Yeah, it didn't come home. But look, it was actually heartbreaking. Fairness, penalties. You couldn't write it, honestly. But look, that's for another day. Today we're talking about, as you say, legend Ronaldinho. Before we get into kind of starting with his career, lads, and getting into the stats, as I said, anyone of a certain age has watched his entire career. We don't really need to delve into stats too much and this and that, but how good was Ronaldinho? Just in a couple of minutes, Robbie, just sum up what you feel like when you think of Ronaldinho.
I was actually only saying before we came on to Marcus that, like, I've never seen anyone play football the way he has. You know, he took it to another level, do you know what I mean? As we say loads of times about players getting to that level, he played football totally different to anybody else. I think, you know, when you see the stuff like that Messi said about him, the lift he gave Barcelona and all, playing with a smile on his face, but there's things he could do. 2 or 3 seasons there, I've never seen anyone, you know, play football like that ever in my whole life. We've seen some great players down the years. Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, phenomenal players, but no one, Zinedine Zidane, no one just kind of played the game the way him. I think it's the best compliment I can give him.
It's the style. It's the style, isn't it? No one has done it. I think a lot of people that I would have spoken about Ronaldinho, just, you know, getting different opinions on it and stuff, they say that he was a throwback to like a Johan Cruyff or a George Best. It was that. It was the skill and the show nearly more so than the end product. You know that way.
I think, Tom, what I'm trying to say is that you would dream of playing football the way he played it. Like everyone thinks in their head, this is the way I want to play, and then he actually went out and did it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was mad. It was like something out of a computer game, basically.
Unbelievable. Same for you, Marcus. Same for you, man. A couple of minutes. What did you? Obviously, you have good and bad, you know, memories of Ronaldinho with the World Cup in 2002 in Japan and stuff like that. But at the same time, we all are fans of football, all football. And that guy was just the best in the world for 2 or 3 years.
Again, I'll mark that down as the second time anyway. It took us 4 minutes. But again, just going back to it, do you know what it is with him, in my opinion, where you've got these players, like, take the stats away from Ronaldo and Messi and the goals and stuff like that. I genuinely don't think there were a player who had the dominance over that period of time. And I mean, it were pure dominance. He was the only name out of anybody's mouth at that time, and everybody wanted to see him from all over the world. People going to Nou Camp, going wherever they could get it. And when he was on the pitch, you just couldn't wait for him to get on the ball, because you just knew something was going to happen, something magical. I think Rijkaard said it at one point, like, every time he touched ball, it was just special. Yeah. And that is, again, like Robbie said, that's one of the best compliments you can give him. There's playing the game, but there's having such an impact on the game because of your skill and the way you play it. It's just, it was just phenomenal.
Definitely. And do you know what it is for me sometimes? When I think of players that define a generation, or players that when you're growing up, everyone changes the way they play, or everyone changes the way they view football. He was one of them, you know, and I think his mate Ronaldo was one of them as well. But there was something about Ronaldinho. Everyone all of a sudden wanted to be a number 10 when Ronaldinho came on the scene. And, you know, I don't think that had anyone else had an influence on that other than him. That left-sided, tricky winger, drifted inside, scored goals, the skills. Like, we can't underestimate how, I actually believe, hand on heart, no player ever in history has successfully brought skills into his game without it being showboating. He done skills to actually score goals. He done skills to beat players. He done skills to make passes. Everything he did had a purpose. It wasn't like Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously love him, but a lot of the skills are just for show. Ronaldinho's weren't sometimes. He actually did it to move a certain way or pass it. That's what made him better, one of the best ever for me. And I have to say, it was an honour watching him play football. I actually never got to see him in the flesh, unfortunately, playing. But he was unreal. You said you seen him, Marcus, didn't you? You got to watch him once.
I did, yeah. I watched him against Malaga at Nou Camp in a 3-0 game. And like I say, the whole hype were all about him at that time. We went down to do the stadium tour. I bought a kit with his name on it, full kit. And the game itself, he was good. It was just the sense in the atmosphere in the crowd as soon as he got on the ball. That was it. It's same as what, obviously, when Messi touches the ball at Nou Camp. They have these godlike players. But, I mean, he scored every type of goal. Free kicks, what he rolled under the wall, setting himself up for overhead kicks. You name it, he did everything.
Touching on that goal, before we delve into it, I honestly think that's one of the greatest goals of all time, where he controls it on his chest and overhead kicks it, chips the keeper.
Villarreal,
Yeah, we were just chatting before we came on again, Tom, and I was saying that to Marcus. There's kind of 3 or 4 standout unbelievable moments out of his career, and that's one of them. He actually spoke about that, saying that he visualised scoring a goal like that, dreamt it up, and then he actually did it. But it was amazing.
It's class, mate. It's honestly, and that type of goal is what defines a player like him. That's not only just a brilliant goal; it's skill, it's awareness, it's vision. It has everything. It really does. But look, we'll get into the thick of it. A couple of little things just before we start. Obviously, we've seen a couple of sponsors come up at the start of the show. One of our sponsors, Rings End Retro, who's Andy from the Big Six podcast, Liverpool fan. He sells retro jerseys, €40. I actually, you can see a few of them in the background of the podcast. I actually ordered a long sleeve Ronaldinho one, would you believe, before we even thought about doing this podcast. It was the 06 one, Champions League winning one, long sleeve Ronaldinho on the back. So that'll be going up on the wall as soon as that comes as well. But
just take them 4 down.
He wasn't as good as either of them, but but no, look, just get on to Andy, Rings End Retro on Instagram, €30, €35 depending. You can get the player type kits, or you can get just the replica ones. Selling boots and tracksuits and everything now, Dublin jerseys, GAA, everything he's selling now, and he's doing unreal business, and obviously he's one of our own as well. So Rings End Retro. Right, lads, getting into it. Born in 1980, Villanova in Porto Alegre. Ronaldinho is born into a family that wasn't necessarily an extremely poor family, unlike we see other South American footballers that we've covered in the past, i.e. Maradona, Robbie, when we did that one. Really poor. Ronaldinho wasn't really in that position. His father had a great job. Mother was just a homemaker. Brothers played football, and one of his brothers was actually his hero at an early age, wasn't he?
Yeah, his brother.
Yeah,
well, his brother was actually pretty good footballer. Had his career cut short through injuries, but they moved to Porto Alegre, another part of it, so the brother could sign for Gremio. Yeah. And that would have, as it turned out, that was going to be Ronaldinho's first club, wasn't it? That's where he. That's where it all started. But saying to Marcus again, he has kind of moments, and even at the start, when he was 13, it was the first time the media became known of him. They actually played it. It must have been an underage game, and obviously he was only 13. And he actually scored. They won 23-0, and he got all 23 goals.
Yeah, I didn't know. I thought that were an unreal fact. I didn't delve in that.
I remember reading that before, and I actually just said to myself, "You think after like 6 or 7, you just smash him up." The 23 goals, but again, that's just one part or one inkling that this person's a genius. You know that way.
Again, a little bit as well. Now you said he did, like, his dad died when he was 8. Drowned. So, terrible losing your dad at such a young age. Obviously, then you have your brother, I suppose, as you said, a bit of a hero to him now as manager.
And his brother actually as well as that, was playing for Gremio, as you say, Robbie, and actually was in the Gremio first team and was really good up until, as you say, pretty bad injury. But in terms of Ronaldinho at Gremio, like we say, he was there for 14 years. Started when he was 7, playing futsal, which obviously we know was massive in South America now, and obviously back in the late 80s and early 90s. Yeah. We always, the stereotypes, Marcus, isn't it? As much as it's wrong, but Brazilians with the heavier weighted football, smaller football, increases their technical skills. If we always like, they play on the beach with such and such, forget about that. But futsal is a major thing with youth football over there, and you can see it in it, can't you? That helped them massively.
It's the close control that they all have. You've seen them all over the years, like Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Kaká. They all bring that element to the game where the close control and the balance and the strength. They've got that low centre of gravity where they can get away from players just from one turn or one movement. And like you say, you could see his background when it come into fruition as he got older. That's just how good he was. He brought everything, what he'd learned to the table.
And, just in futsal, they chip the ball over a player's head frequently in futsal. And
from a better yard out.
Yeah, literally, they just scoop up and over them. I don't know how many times he did that in his career. Ridiculously good player. But look, we're not going to spend too much time talking about him with Gremio because, as you say, he was 21 years of age. Then obviously he was going to start moving on. But just before we move on, we'll take a look at the Brazilian team because in 1997 he was called up to the under-17 squad. He played right the way through for Brazil, but he was called up to the under-17s World Cup squad. He was thereabouts with the Gremio first team. Obviously, he was only 17. So he was thereabouts. And they went on and won the under-17s World Cup, and he was a star again in 97. It wasn't long until he went into the full Brazil squad. In 98, he went straight into it. However, he didn't make the World Cup squad that went to France. But again, it just goes to show it was right there. People think, okay, he went to Paris Saint Germain, little bit of issues there, then moved to Barcelona, and he was great. He was already been touted from about 6 or 7 years before that this guy is going to be one of the best in the world, wasn't he, Marcus?
Yeah, of course. He just needed a bit more global exposure. Obviously, you're playing in Brazil, not as many people see it around the world. Obviously, the national side themselves will see it and they pick him up. Same as they all started in the Brazilian league, Ronaldo, the lot, and they get picked up that way. But as soon as you sort of get that branding and exposure, and as soon as everybody's seen what type of player he were, then obviously scouts from all over the world.
And especially the likes of an under-17s World Cup, Robbie, that's prime real estate, isn't it? If you show up there, regardless of what country you're from, you're putting yourself in the shop window, aren't you really?
Big time, Tom. And just actually on that, which you're saying with the futsal and the flicking it up, he actually, again, another notable kind of thing is when he actually done it, the World Cup winning captain. They were playing, having a raid here, the Rio Grand de Sol State Championship. I have no idea what level that is, but Dunga's playing in the final against them. He's flicked it up over his head and absolutely made a show of him. They said that's when he came to prominence, So that was on the 20th of June, 1999. So that was just before the Copa America.
Hence why Dunga left him out at World Cup squad.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say.
And that's him at 18. That's him at 18 doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely ridiculous.
Or 19, whatever.
Just 19.
Dunga was some player as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
World Cup winning captain.
An absolute legend in Brazil, obviously, the World Cup winning captain. But even another thing is they added the Inho into his name. He's actually Ronaldo. But because of the other Ronaldo, Inho means small in Brazil. So
they are talking about his teeth.
Definitely not.
Little Ronaldo. But look, Gremio obviously was never going to be where he was going to stay. Let's call it as it is. It's not like it was back in the 50s and 60s like Pele and stuff. He was always going to move. But he left under a bit of a cloud. I just actually, before we touch on when he left, we're talking about the Brazil squad in 98. He didn't get into the World Cup squad. He was disappointed, but he was still only 18. He was only playing for Gremio's first team for a year, maybe 18 months. So he wasn't, he knew he kind of had maybe another couple of years in mind. But 1999 Copa America, was when, as you say, Rob, that's when he exploded on the scene. Really, because they said, okay, under 17s, you can stand out there, but playing for the Brazil first team in the Copa America, and they won it, and he was unbelievable. I think that he scored in every game, or he scored in every game bar one or something.
That was the Confederations Cup, what he played in a week after.
Cup, Sorry, yeah. But again, it just goes to show, even at an early age for Brazil, on the big stage, he was turning up constantly.
Big game player.
Sign of a big player, when they turn up in big games. But moving on from Gremio, Paris Saint Germain came knocking on the door in 2001, and he left on what we know now as a free transfer. Then it was the Bosman, obviously. But it went to a tribunal and they got €5 million, Gremio, which when you think of it is absolute criminal. All they got was $5 million for Ronaldinho.
Me and Robbie were talking about it before.
Scandalous amount of money. Actually, easily, for what he was at the time, he could have put 25 in front of that.
A funny one for El Gav that does be on the podcast. He's actually meant to sign for Arsenal, but he couldn't get a work permit, so it fell through.
Realised they were sure.
Exactly. And he was actually even going to Scotland, to play for St Mirren just to get a work permit.
Madness.
Yeah,
that is unreal.
So imagine
that. Like Lewandowski. Lewandowski was going to sign for Blackburn, except for remember the Icelandic volcano exploded. And the ash cloud, he was flying to Blackburn to sign for them from Lech Poznan, and that was cancelled. And he went to bleeding wherever it was that he was quality with them.
I had something to do with
that. But yeah, look, Paris Saint Germain, here we go. Okay, he's landed in Europe. This unbelievable 21-year-old player who's won the Copa America, who's in the Brazil first team, expected absolute monumental things of him. And Robbie, it didn't really happen, did it, in his first year or so? Bedding in period, maybe?
Yeah, no, again, they weren't the Paris Saint-Germain now, obviously, that they are today.
Of course,
I think we were saying to Marcus as well, that's kind of more of it seemed like France was easier to get a work permit to work in at the time. I think it's a gateway to bigger things, isn't it?
It's never going to be with Paris Saint-Germain to win Champions Leagues or anything like that.
No.
Yeah. He didn't. The manager at the time, Fernandez, as well. They clashed a lot. There was question marks already about his kind of like the Parisian nightlife in Paris, and the kind of his after football.
That was actually the first time someone publicly commented on it.
Yeah.
What you say, Rob, and he actually said Ronaldinho comes alive in big games. But in other games, he's no interest. He's more concerned about what he's going to wear in nightclubs after the game. So it's a stinging criticism, that way of him. But again, he's still only young. He's 21. He's going to have his head turned, isn't he? Realistically, Marcus, arriving in Paris,
of course. It's like he gets his move to Europe, and like I say, PSG weren't the team that they are now, but I mean, they were still a massive football club, and obviously the lifestyle, living in Paris, living in the city, probably started earning for the first time some proper money in football terms, and then that's it. Again, more exposure, cameras, a bit more popular, getting a bit more attention when he's walking up and down the street, and that's how easy it is at young. You see it, so many young footballers, some of them completely crumble. If you remember, Michael Johnson at City and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as soon as it can go either way, and that's obviously how it ended. And obviously, Victor Fernandez, who were in charge at the time, he could see the talent that he had, but he just weren't getting it out of him.
Exactly, and as Robbie said, it seemed to be a personality thing too. I don't think it was solely that Ronaldinho liked the gargle. Do you know that way? I think he probably expected that he was signing Rivaldo. Do you know what I mean? And he wasn't. Yeah. He needed time to nurture and stuff like that. But
he thought he was already established and he weren't.
Yeah. Before we move on with Ronaldinho as well, we have to touch on one of his teammates, really, don't we, at Paris Saint Germain, considering we have a Bolton man here. JJ Okocha.
Long live the greatest.
Yeah, is he up there with Bolton's finest, Marcus?
Well, there's been a poll. It's been voted over numerous times, and I'm sure if a few of the boys listen from this Bolton club of Bolton fans, they'll tell you how good he was as well as me. And, obviously take the bias away because I'm a Bolton fan, but I'm also a football fan. It's like Robbie said, some of the stuff what Okocha did on a football pitch were just... You've all seen the highlights. You're football fans, and it's similar ilk to Ronaldinho. The same sort of tricks, the Rabonas passing across field, and destroyed United a couple of times. And yeah, different.
It's always nice.
Oh yeah, it's always good.
Leeds United, he meant there though.
But yeah, echoing on that, yeah, he is up there, and I'm assuming he may have had some sort of influence on Ronaldinho. You know, they played in the same way, the same tempo, and then obviously Ronaldinho just took it to the next level.
Definitely complemented each other, you would say. Without having watching Paris Saint Germain week in, week out, who would have in 2001? Let's call it as it is. But I would love to have done now to watch the two of them young players. You know, JJ Koche, what a player, and he came to the Premier League. But given 3 or 4 years younger, whatever he was, I'd say he was even better at Paris Saint Germain. You know that way.
The Olympics in '96, he was one of the best players at the tournament.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. He was surrounded with decent players.
And Nelka was there as well.
He was indeed, yeah.
They had a decent enough team, but unfortunately, he was always going to be a big fish, small pond because he was.
It was a stepping stone.
I think, for me personally, as a 10-year-old Irish lad, it was the 2002 World Cup when Ronaldinho just became a household name. Yeah, absolutely. Did he shoot or did he cross?
He shot. In my opinion.
I'm glad you said that because he definitely shot.
He's on we're doing him on the podcast, so he definitely shot, didn't he?
Definitely shot.
Yeah, we can't slander him like that.
I didn't mean it. Yeah, I didn't mean that. Robbie, 2002 World Cup. Brazil are obviously going into it. Not necessarily top favourites because France are the reigning champions, reigning European champions. But off the back of the Copa America in '99, building with Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Gilberto Silva. You know, they had a really, really good team. And as we said before the podcast, they probably were coming in second or third favourites, weren't they, into that World Cup?
Yeah, they were. They're always, you know, any Brazil, even if you don't have the 3 lads, you know, you would expect Brazil to get into the latter stages of any World Cups, you know. But again, 2002, they were excellent. Obviously, as I said, probably in my opinion, that was probably England's best team that I've seen in my generation. Do you know what I mean? The players England had, and again, the game was so tight. That's the standout game, really, though. That
we started so well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Winning 1-0, Michael Owen, do you know what I mean? Scores after 23 minutes, and then it's just either side at half time. Rivaldo scores to make it 1-1, and then Ronaldinho with the unbelievable. I think Ronaldinho actually set him up as well, so he assisted and scored in that game. You know, he actually he got sent off as well. I think
he stamped on someone. Did he? Danny Mills, was it, or someone?
Danny Mills, yeah, correct.
I don't even know what Danny Mills was doing on the pitch. I think he was a Leeds player at the time as well. You know, he misses the semi-final and then he's back for the final, which, you know, it'll always be remembered for Ronaldo, that final. You know, he got the 2 goals. But,
absolutely.
You know,
but the 3 of them, isn't it? Like Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho, the 3 R's, they were Messi, Suarez, Neymar. Like, for that Brazil team, they were the dream team, Marcus, weren't they? Like, what was it like? Like, England obviously had massive confidence coming into that World Cup, you know, with the team that they had and stuff like that. But coming up against that Brazil team, what was it like to actually be in opposition to them?
It was one of them. Obviously, we knew what type of players we had. Like Robbie mentioned, it is known as the golden generation for England. And I mean, you just look at the midfielders, what were out there: Beckham, Gerrard, and Joe Cole were an outstanding player. I think Sinclair even playing in that World Cup as well. As you mentioned, Mills. I don't even know what they were doing there, but in the Brazil game when we started so well. Owen was arguably one of the best strikers on the planet at that time.
Yeah.
So we knew what we could bring.
Before, hadn't he?
Yeah.
2001.
Yeah, but against, like you say, when you mention the players we mentioned there, the 3 R's especially, when you're playing against a team like that with that amount of quality in, you've got to put your chances away because you know sooner or later, down the line, they're going to create chances. And they had the best player, again, another one, who I deem him up there as one of the greatest and especially one of the most deadly finishes. We've seen his record at World Cups and what have you. And I mean, you start giving them type of players chances and they're going to put you up. And as Robbie said, Ronaldinho set the first goal up and he absolutely sits Cole down, step over, drops into the left and then finds Rivaldo's feet and he just picks a corner. And then you kind of, from my point of view, you kind of knew how the second half were going to go.
They got the wind in their sails, hadn't they, at that stage?
100%. And then obviously to a goal to go in like it did. But like I said, there's all the opinions, but he meant it because you can see the glance that he has before he makes contact with the ball. And Seaman were always renowned for moving away and trying to judge the punch of the ball. So he always came a few yards off his line for set pieces that were further out. And because he got done with it, off Naeem in a Cup Winners' Cup final. He got lobbed from 40 odd yards or something like that. So a player of Ronaldinho's master, he knows that.
And even looking at one of the documentaries I was watching, just to re-familiarise myself with Ronaldinho, like, you have to do it with this. You want to get your facts right and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Looking at the video again, he actually says to someone on the bench just before he takes it, and in the documentary he said, I might chip him. He said to someone on the bench, it might have been a coach, maybe a substitute, and even after, when he scores, you'd see him, he turns back and he points at the bench.
Straight, yeah.
And he said it was because I was pointing to, and I can't remember who it was that he named, but he said, I fucking told you that I'd get him. Do you know that way? So he definitely shot. And even like Seaman, look, unbelievable goalkeeper, but even look where that ball ends up hitting the net. It's about an inch away from the crossbar and an inch away from the post. It's just inside. It's perfect, as you said.
He was renowned for that, though, wasn't he? No look passes and all this sort of thing. Yeah. He had things that
he could do anything with a ball.
Pass the ball with his back.
Yeah, ridiculous player. It goes without saying at this stage, Ronaldinho is starting to become one of the best players in the world. At the World Cup, obviously, he wins the World Cup, as we know. 2-0 in the final against Germany. He won the best midfielder award at the World Cup. So he was going back to Paris Saint Germain after probably a poor enough club season after the peak of his international career. But when he goes back to Paris Saint Germain again, doesn't really, a bit of a damp squib again, more falling out with the manager. And the manager again comes out publicly and says he prefers nightclubs instead of playing football. And it just became a little bit too much for him. And in the following summer, 2003, a team that pretty much had fallen out of the top echelons of club football at that stage, but were still a massive club historically. Barcelona come knocking to sign him. And correct me if I'm wrong, lads, it was a world record transfer at the time, or thereabouts.
It was there.
40 million anyway, wasn't it?
45 million or something. I think Zidane was the record, 50 or something at the time, but like 35 million then is an absolute monumental amount of money. Look, he signs for Barcelona. Frank Rijkaard is the coach. He goes into a team where he's undoubtedly going to be the number one player. He's given the number 10 shirt. He then, over the course of the next 2 to 3 years, becomes the greatest player in the world, and the Ronaldinho that we are all speaking about now, isn't it really, Rob?
Yeah. Big time. I think the biggest, I'm just reading a quote here from Messi. I've seen same similar kind of thing from Puyol as well, who would have been the captain at the time at Barcelona. Ronaldinho was responsible for the change in Barca. It was a bad time, and the change that came about with his arrival was amazing. And that's, he actually transformed that whole club through just him being so good on a football pitch. Do you know what I mean? He wasn't, as I said, he's a good time Charlie. He played with a smile on his face, but he liked what came with football, all the glitz and the glam after that, which from his performances on the pitch, he well deserved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but to be that type of person and just do it through football is actually quite amazing. It's definitely unheard of. Do you know that way that you can actually transform by just playing unbelievable football and transform a whole club, especially as big as Barcelona. As you said, Tom, they hadn't won a Champions League for. I think when they do eventually win it, it's 14 years or something.
14 years, yeah.
Yeah, so, and that's what I was going to say. It was since the kind of the 1990s dream team, early, with Koeman and Laudrup and players like that. That was the last time that they really were dominating European football. Yeah. So it was a long, long time. Let's call it as it is. You know what I mean? So
Stoichkov and Romario.
Yeah, exactly. Like, which was an unbelievable team as well. You could have a podcast on that team alone. But obviously, at this stage, it's really probably it's make or break. Without focusing too much on the glitz and glamour, if we really look into it in detail, this is going to either make or break his entire career. He's relatively been a failure at Paris Saint Germain. They didn't win leagues. They didn't win cups. He wasn't the the player that kicked them onto the next level. He looked like he was probably going to be just another run-of-the-mill Brazilian footballer. If you just look at the stats on playing paper, okay, we woke up and that sort of thing. He goes to Barcelona, immense pressure on him, and what he delivered in the space of just a couple of years was absolutely unbelievable. The first year at Barcelona, right, granted, he comes in, he's settling down and stuff. They didn't really kick on too much in the first year, but it's that second year, 2005, isn't it, lads, is when you start seeing the greatest player in the world. Obviously we don't watch that league in and out week to week, but watching Champions League football around then, that's when he became the cult hero that we all loved, wasn't it? Marcus, obviously this is going to sound so whatever, but you didn't support the Champions League football team. Okay, you obviously watched Bolton.
I was saying to Robbie there.
You're not biased at all watching it. Look, if Ronaldinho was playing against Chelsea, which he did, you're going to be like, fucking Ronaldinho. Or, you know what I mean?
100%.
You're just watching it for what it is. What was he like to watch at that era against the best players in the world?
Yeah, and I said to Rob there before we came on, and I was like, he made people want to watch Barcelona. Obviously, I think the first season he got injured a bit, and he played a bit of a bit part. But then, like you say, going on to this second season, and the stats just go through the roof. The honours what he gets just go through the roof. Yeah. And like I was saying to Rob, he just ITV Champions League used to be on, and obviously I didn't. Bolton weren't in Champions League at that time, so obviously you watch the football avid fan, and he were making world class players look bang average. It's like you remember the game against Chelsea in Champions League where it looked like everything on the pitch just stopped in slow motion, where he controls that ball on edge of box, shimmy, left, right, and like toe bung presses it into the corner.
And that's it. Like that in that game against Chelsea, they do lose. I think it was 4-2. They ended up losing, but he scored the both goals. And that was a feature of it, wasn't it? During the Champions League, it was like Barcelona won 2-1. Okay, Ronaldinho scored 2 of them. It was always, he was the man at that stage. They had a good team, don't get me wrong, they did. But when you watch the Champions League in that era, it was like you looked out for Ronaldinho, didn't you, lads?
Yeah.
He was the be-all and end-all. Like Rob, that tie against Chelsea over whatever it was, I think it was a 5-4 or something, they were knocked out over 2 legs. That was when we were like, right, we've seen him against English opposition now. How good was he in that game?
Yeah. And then the following season, then he actually knocks them out. The goal where he's just standing is unbelievable, and he pokes it into the corner.
One of the best individual performances I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. Do you know what he said? This is what Ronaldinho himself actually said. He said, it was like someone pressed pause and for 3 seconds everyone stopped and I'm the only one that was moving. So even himself, he said, it felt like that I could just do anything I wanted in that moment.
The amount of space he had just to get that shot in was minute. He literally, he could only place it in that exact position because there were no give. I think he had Terry in front of him or Carvalho, and then it might have been Ferreira or one at fullbacks, and he literally had that little gap in that corner, and he just made it look so effortless and easy.
And even for that goal, he receives it into his right foot, turns his body to face the goal, doesn't take another step. So his first touch is actually what sets himself up for that shot. Does the little twist and then whips it into the corner, and Czech is just buried. And I'd say even Czech at that stage felt like clapping because it was just absolutely unbelievable. And obviously, we know 2005, okay, Barcelona end up winning the league. For the first time in a long time, they've won it. They win the Super Cup, and Ronaldinho's crowned FIFA World Player of the Year in December of 2004, and then wins the Ballon d'Or then in 2005, because at the time they were separate awards, as we know. But he wins them. He is the greatest player in the world, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think even the points total at that time was a record up until I think Messi a couple of years ago. The difference in the points to second,
Interesting to note, Tom. He's one of the only. There's 3 of them that have received a standing ovation at the Bernabeu as well. They beat him 3-0.
I
actually thought there was only 2, but go on. I know who the other one is.
Maradona was one of them.
Maradona's one. I don't know Iniesta is the third, because remember when we covered Iniesta, he got standing ovation because he scored the winner in the World Cup final.
Oh, yes.
So Ronaldinho then comes second. Is the second player from Maradona, and that particular game, they hadn't beaten them for 7 years at the Bernabeu, maybe, or it could be just in general. And he does a scoop pass as well for Xavi, which is unbelievable. But his performance was absolutely amazing, and they actually clapped him off the pitch. It was only at the time, the second time in the history of Real Madrid that had happened. That so just goes to show the impact he had.
That was actually the year after as well. That was the 2006 season. That was when obviously we know what happened at the end of that. But just going back just a touch as well, at the end of May in 2005, obviously a very significant event happened for Ronaldinho as well. Not so much for him, but he actually assisted Lionel Messi's first Barcelona goal.
He did. Against Offside,
which we now know was one of 600 and odd or 700 goals. The first goal of the greatest player ever, him and Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't separate them because I love Ronaldo, but Messi is definitely the greatest of all time. Whether Ronaldo's equal with him or not, I don't know. But that's a great achievement as well for him to look at. I know he didn't necessarily do much, but just to say, the greatest player of all time, I assisted his first goal, his first senior goal for Barcelona. I just think that's class for him to have done that. But
it were a passing the torch moment.
That's exactly what it was. You know, even though we know the following season was, again, the pinnacle of his club career, it was that, okay, this guy is starting to really make moves. He's in the first team now. He is going to take over from me. And it was a perfect transition. Rijkaard into Guardiola. You know, Ronaldinho into Messi. Both transitions were absolutely unbelievable. But the 2006 season, Robbie, like you say, that was the standing ovation from the Bernabeu, which only three.
That is the best individual performance I've seen.
It is, in my opinion, it is. You don't do that. It's as simple as that. You just don't do that in the Bernabeu. Especially in the El Clasico, which we know is fiery, is bad-tempered. You know, they kick the shit out of each other. For him to be that good in that game, and that Real Madrid team was no slouches either. I mean, that's the
Galacticos as well. Coming to the end, but
you've got Beckhams and stuff playing for them, and Owen.
They had a Ballon d'Or winner at centre half.
Cannavaro, you know, absolutely unbelievable, and he wins it that year, 2006. He actually won the Ballon d'Or that year after winning the World Cup.
Nobody touched him that year.
Again, absolutely outstanding, lads. Again, Barcelona retained the league and the Super Cup. The first time they've done back-to-back leagues in decades. And then we come to the Champions League, which they say not only was it Barcelona's best season in years, but they reckon even statistically it was Ronaldinho's best season for them.
Yeah.
Frank Rijkaard, another quote from him, he transmits a lot of joy and pleasure playing the game. He has individual skills that are at such a high level that everybody in the world adores him. And that, in a nutshell, just highlights what he meant to everyone. Yeah. It wasn't even so much like, Jesus, Ronaldinho's great. People actually fell in love with him, didn't they? They did. Time. But how good he was. I absolutely loved watching him, I have to say. But that Champions League final, lads, was mental against Arsenal, wasn't it? I remember bits of it, bits and bobs, because as I said, I was only bleeding 11 or 12 at the time. But Arsenal get goalkeeper sent off in the first 25 minutes or something, isn't it? Jens Lehmann gets sent off. Echo he takes down outside the box.
Don't forget, this Arsenal team were the best in the country as well at that time, or even in Europe at that time.
They're thereabouts, definitely. Like a couple of years post
Henry as well.
Henry and
Perez,
Sol
Campbell, Vieira, Gilberto.
Absolutely.
The list is endless.
An absolutely awesome team. They get to the final for a reason. Did they beat Real Madrid or Inter Milan en route?
Henry destroyed both them teams, didn't he? Single-handedly.
So I mean, that's what you're talking about. Absolutely ridiculous, you know.
I think they beat Villarreal in semi-final.
Yeah, they did actually. Yeah, this season was Ronaldinho's best. 26 goals he scored, 17 in La Liga and 7 in the Champions League. He got, which again, those numbers then pre-Messi, Ronaldo are some of the best you'll see. Like 7 in the Champions League was brilliant. Now looking at Ronaldo's 15, it's not, you know, that way. But that's just the freaks that them two lads are, isn't it? Really. Yeah. But look, as we know, they go on and they win the Champions League. Who scored the first one for Barcelona? Was it Eto'o that got it?
Yeah,
and
Ronnie assisted it as well, I believe.
And then Belletti, wasn't it? Giuliano Belletti got the winner.
Yeah, Belletti, yeah.
Well, Campbell put Arsenal 1-0 up, didn't he, first?
He did, off a corner, wasn't it? The bullet header he scored.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I mean, it's an absolutely unbelievable season for Barcelona. They win, you know, you could call it 3 trophies with the Super Cup, but it's a double, you know, that way. That season, without a shadow of a doubt, Ronaldinho was the greatest player in the world going to the World Cup, isn't he, lads? The World Cup in 2006, where they were massive favourites to win the World Cup. You know, granted, Luis Ronaldo was probably now past his best with his injuries and stuff like that. Rivaldo, I think at this stage, had probably retired.
Adriano will come in prominent.
But this is what I was about to say. You have Kaká, you have Adriano, you have Ronaldo, Ronaldinho. Robinho was actually just on the fringes of the squad at the time, but Ronaldinho was the main man at this stage. He was the talisman. Everything relied on him, and they were really, really poor. What do you remember of the 2006 World Cup of Brazil? Again, Marcus, touching on England, I have to disagree with this because I think the 2006 team was England's best team that I ever seen. I think 4 years later, you had Wayne Rooney and stuff like that. I think that was probably better. But again, an unbelievable squad that England bring and a let down. And what I'm trying to say is the calibre of the squads in that tournament was ridiculous. You know, France are unreal, Brazil, England, Spain are just there or thereabouts to start getting that team together, you know.
My biggest memory of 2006 is obviously, you know, we won't touch on it too much, but Zidane obviously was unbelievable. Brazil ultimately, they were beaten by France. And actually that game, like you just wrong off the players there, Zidane was basically carried France to the final. And that game in particular, he was outstanding against Brazil.
I think there's actually highlight reels of him in that video alone, isn't there? Like people have made videos about that game in particular. I think he sailed Ronaldo with a dummy in one moment as well, and it's just outstanding.
And look, they ultimately flopped Brazil. They got knocked out early. I think that could have been the last 16.
It was the quarters by France. Henry 1-0.
So
Ronaldinho slaughtered in the press by the Brazilian press because they
a
were
lot of them were
expecting
Adriano as well. I think they kind of
they were expecting the 3 R's, Marcus, weren't they? They were expecting Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Ronaldinho again.
Yeah, but it's like you said, a couple of them age was starting to kick in. Not so much Ronaldo retired early, as we know, but like you say, is again another player who loved the lifestyle. Their love for the game started waning. You talk about how much money they earn and stuff like that. They'd already won all the trophies, Ballon d'Ors, the lot, and the love started waning. And I think, like Rob said there, when they flopped, it kind of started the demise of the Brazilian team in a way, because I think from that point onwards, they weren't really, as you were coming into like 2010, 14 or whichever, they didn't really have the significance of what they normally had in tournaments. People started looking at Spain, and Italy obviously won the World Cup. England always get mentioned, and then Brazil kind of went back to the forefront. Whereas, like Rob said, in the earlier days, they were always first or second favourites. 9 times out of 10, they were favourites. But yeah, they were expecting that team to turn up and basically do what they did in 2002, and it just didn't happen. They got bullied in a lot of the games. The French game, they got bullied, and I mean, it just shows how great Zidane were, because he gave them run around at like 35 years of age. And
absolutely unbelievable. And you know, one of the things that was labelled at the Brazilian team at that time as well was that they were top heavy and unbalanced. There was a quote from one of the Brazilian media was that they had this quartet of, you know, as we said, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Kaká and Adriano, but defensively and in midfield they were extremely poor, and they basically just tried to win the World Cup with those players. And they say here Ronaldinho didn't even score a goal. He only had 1 assist in the World Cup, and he ended up being benched towards the end of it because he was just so poor. Correct me if I'm wrong as well, was Dunga the captain? Was Dunga the manager? Of the Brazilian team then as well, 2006, and he was slaughtered as well because of his style of football that he was trying to play. So it was just a really, really bad situation for Brazil at that time, and it was a pity because he was the greatest player in the world.
Coming off that season, what he had, it was strange.
unbelievable. Kaká as well. We know, obviously, the year before was beaten by Liverpool in the Champions League final. The year after wins it. He wins the Ballon d'Or the year after in 2007. So he was
great player.
Unbelievable. Adriano, short-lived career, obviously with mental health issues and stuff like that. He was unbelievable. So it's such a pity. And for Ronaldinho as well, he puts it down as one of the biggest disappointments of his career. They say there, you know, Ronaldinho lacks an important characteristic that Maradona and Pele had, which is aggression. They transformed themselves in adversity. They became possessed and furious. Ronaldinho looks like he doesn't care. And that's something that when he in latter stages of his Barcelona career, which we'll flick through quickly because they're not pretty, you know, it's a pretty quick fall from grace, even though at AC he's good, but 2007 he still scores 20 plus goals at Barcelona but failed to win anything. The injury started
picking up
at this stage as well. Flicking through to 2008, he pretty much has been replaced by Messi at this stage. In the team, Thierry Henry has also been signed at this stage, so he was trying to really get into the squad, but it wasn't happening. Injuries again, he was starting to regress. And a quote here from Frank Rijkaard, which I thought was really good as well. He said, when it wasn't his day, his level would drop more than I've ever seen any other player. It dropped enormously. He said he's a really, really sensitive guy that couldn't really take criticism. So as much as he's saying on one hand that he's an absolute genius, he said, but when it wasn't going his way, he wasn't going to dig in the trenches and get you out of it, you know. At this stage, lads, he really is being eclipsed by Messi, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he's, you know, Barcelona, it's all changed. Guardiola's come in. He wants to get out a few of the lads, and Ronaldinho, obviously, you know, as Marcus alluded to, it's the passing of the torch, and Messi and, you know, is going to take over, and Ronaldinho's kind of, maybe his lifestyle and that is coming to the end of his career, and obviously then he kind of just leaves and goes on to AC Milan's the next move, isn't it? He actually turned down Man City. I was reading.
They went for Robinho instead. Yeah, that was the one. Now, in fairness, I have to be honest with you, Robinho.
He played all right
at Man City for a year or so. And looking back on it, if they did go for Ronaldinho at that stage, it probably would have been a disaster because he never really rediscovered his top class form. But would have loved to see him in England. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, look, lads. What at this stage now, Ronaldinho is waning. He's being replaced. You know, I think for people that maybe didn't really experience watching Ronaldinho at his pomp, people are like, Jesus, 2 years later he was really finished. But unfortunately, it was a massive transition in Barcelona too, wasn't it? If they stuck with Rijkaard or a similar manager and instead the same style of football, he probably could have kept going. But Barcelona themselves had a meteoric change at that stage, Marcus, didn't they?
Oh, well, we all know, don't we? We've heard Henry's comments, like when he went into the studio after playing where Guardiola had a set way of playing and you're attacking players staying in the same positions, but you've got to close down, you've got to close that space down. Because as we know, that's what Barcelona are all about. As soon as they lost the ball, they were hounding to get it back. And they had it back within 2 or 3 seconds. And with the way Ronaldinho played, let's be honest, let's not cut it. There's no way that was part of his gameplay to chase balls down and win it back to affect games. He just wanted to be given the ball to do what he could do, and then obviously, the condition of him started to deteriorate. We've seen him put a bit of weight on here and there, and it were only going to go one way. Like Robbie said, Messi coming to the fore then, and the Barcelona fans were kind of the Messi hype all started. I think he scored an hat-trick against Real Madrid when he was like 19-year-old, and then that's it. So before you get lost and forgotten, you need to leave while you've still got a legacy there. Or
exactly, and as Robbie rightfully said, Marcus, and like you've said, he did go, and he went to a giant at the time. AC Milan had won the Champions League the year before. They were beaten in the final 2 years before that. They were really, really good at the time. Was Ronaldo playing for them as well at the time?
I'm not too sure. I think Zlatan had gone there, I think.
Yeah, you know, they had an unbelievable team. I think, obviously,
Seedorf,
Gattuso, Pirlo, you know, Jaap Stam might have still been around as well.
Nesta.
So they had a brilliant team, but he just never rediscovered the form. I personally, I was disappointed with him. They played against United I think it was 2008, maybe, or maybe 2009. We played them, and
he
we
scored
beat
in
them.
one of them, I think, did he?
He did score, but again,
United won 3-2, didn't they?
Rooney scored.
Rooney got 2 goals.
So that, like, we had a really good team at that stage as well, but he just wasn't the Ronaldinho. He was actually just a luxury player, but he wasn't someone that was going to win the game. He just wasn't at that stage of his career, and it was a pretty quick demise then. Just briefly before we move on as well, there was one part that we just failed to mention, which Robbie had said, actually, 2005, just before the World Cup, the Confederations Cup, they won. Only the second time Brazil had ever won it. And Ronaldinho again was unbelievable, but that was in his peak. You know,
the captain, I believe.
He was the captain. From 2004 to maybe 2007, that was his peak, you know, and he quickly went. We then had the Beijing Olympics. It was the first year, I believe, that they had soccer in it. Or football, as we know it as, and Brazil won a bronze medal in the Olympics. So something that, again, probably not a lot of people would know, that Brazil won the bronze, but he was part of that team. Now they really only bring 1 or 2 professionals, maybe 3, and the rest are made up of kind of amateurs and lower level professionals. But yeah, Ronaldinho was there, and he won the bronze in Beijing. That pretty much wraps Ronaldinho up, lads, other than when you touch on his career in Brazil when he goes back. But at this stage, he's probably just doing it for money, isn't he? Let's call it as it is.
Yeah, just to go home as well, I think.
Yeah, big time. Probably a god in Brazil. You know, he does win the Copa Libertadores in 2014 with Atletico Mineiro. So, you know, he actually won everything in the game.
Absolutely everything.
Individually and you know, collectively, he has it all. And for me, definitely one of the greatest. As I said, I've never seen anyone play football the way he has. That period, as you said, Tom, then 3 or 4 seasons, he was just on a different planet. He was playing a totally different game to everyone else, and it was unbelievable to watch. It was brilliant. It really was.
Quality. What I'll do is I'm going to read out just a couple of quotes just to really emphasise the people, because, as you say, lads, it's 2021. Ronaldinho really disappeared off the face of football 10 years ago, which is crazy when you think of it. We do have people that watch the show that are 17, 18, 19, so they would have been little kids when Ronaldinho was unbelievable, you know, that way. But this is some of the quotes by people that you get. Okay, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who people will know. Prime Ronaldinho was phenomenal. He made his opponents look like children. Rui Costa on his vision and passing. There's not many players that can offer goal scoring passes like he can. He was marvellous. He is a rare case of an assist man who can provide the ball from anywhere. Edgar Davids is former Barcelona teammate. For the skills and his tricks, Ronaldinho was the best player that I ever played with. Henrik Larsson said the exact same thing, said he's the best player I ever played with. Willian, who he played with towards the end of his time at Brazil, when Willian was actually only starting, he said, greatest player I've ever seen. Juninho, greatest player I've ever seen. 442 magazine said he's possibly the best technician in the history of football in Brazil. He was They said he was listed as number 5 on the greatest football players in the last 25 years. So that just gives you an idea of what we're talking about here when we talk about Ronaldinho, lads, isn't it? He is one of the greatest ever.
Definitely.
Most definitely.
You know, if you had to list them, where do you put them when it comes to, I know people's top 10s, top 5s are so difficult, but if you could put them between 2 players, that's the way I'm going to describe it. Who do you think is just better, and who do you think he's just better than? Well, for me, he's in the top 10 greatest players ever for me. You know, I believe that he isn't at Zinedine Zidane level. I don't think he's at Messi, Ronaldo level. I think they're the 3. I think he's at Maradona level. And I think if you have players that you think he's probably better than, you know, I would go as far to say is he's the best Brazilian, but besides Ronaldo and Pele ever. You know, that's the best that I can give him. I think he's easily maybe 5th or 6th greatest player ever that I've ever seen. Yeah. What do you reckon, Rob?
Yeah, I probably agree with you. Well, for me, obviously, it's kind of Messi, Maradona. So, you know, then you're saying maybe Ronaldo just behind that, Cristiano Ronaldo, and then Zidane, Ronaldinho, I think, kind of. So
It's those kind of 4 or 5 that I have ahead of him as well.
Yeah, so pretty similar to yourself, Tom. I'd say he's about 5th or 6th of all time. I think, look, you know, you could be here all day talking about that, you know what I mean? There was some great players, like, when you watch down through the years, even the likes of, like, Bobby Charlton and all was absolutely brilliant back in the day, do you know what I mean? No one actually even gives him the credit that he deserved. He was 2-footed and phenomenal, do you know what I mean? Just, you know, kind of going way out and way back. But yeah, look, I'd probably have him about 6th, I think, just behind Zidane.
It's definitely top 10 anyway for you.
Yeah, 100%.
Mr. Lilly.
Yeah, well, just again, echoing what Robbie says there, everyone has a similar sort of bracket. So you're talking, obviously, Messi, Ronaldo, for me, are the 2 greatest. And then, obviously, you've got the likes of Maradona, Pele, George Best, but he is definitely like 5 or 6 for me, along with Zidane. Zidane's slightly ahead of him, but I mean, it just shows how good he were, because he only had a dominance over football for give him 5 years tops, 2 or 3 seasons where, like Robbie said, he were off the planet. But when he's still held in such high regard for not really playing, people's football careers span over 15 years, and that's how highly respected he is. And just for pure entertainment and a whole package as a player, the goals, the assists, the skill, the guile, everything like that. And just, like you say, the smile on his face is always it's the thing that I remember him most for. Is every time camera pan for him, you just see them big white teeth, and he always has a smile on his face, and you just knew he loved playing the game. Yeah,
and this, as you say, the smile is synonymous with what he brought to football. It was happiness, it was entertainment, 100%. It was a show, you know, and that's what I think is missing sometimes from the best footballers in the world right now. Yeah. It's all about results. It's not about the show. And Ronaldinho absolutely brought the party to the football pitch.
You got what you paid for when you paid for a ticket when he was playing.
You know, absolutely unbelievable footballer. But look, lads, what we'll do is we're going to wrap it up there. Marcus, thanks so much for coming onto the podcast.
Boys. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Pleasure, Marcus.
Cheers, Robbo.
Get you on for the next one as well, man.
100%.
Who matches Ronaldinho? This is the problem that we've had for years, Robbie, isn't it?
Yeah,
we started with bleeding Maradona and Zidane and Iniesta and Ronaldinho. You're saying to you now, who do you go with now? Maybe we have to go to England. We've gone abroad for the last 4 episodes. Maybe it's someone now a little bit closer to our hearts, you know. Stuart Dallas or someone like that.
Stuart Dallas.
Ballon
D'Or.
Luke Chadwick had the
legend. It's more league medals than Steven Gerrard. But we leave it there. Thanks a million, lads, and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.
Cheers, boys.
See you, Tom.